Well, folks, welcome to this meeting of the Cemetery Board. I'm Dan Shapiro, Secretary of State, designated chair, and I would normally point to my right or left to have my fellow members of the board introduce themselves, but I've confused as to who they are because they're sitting in seats unaccustomed to me. So I'll just, you are, sir.
Paul Ambrose, representing Acting Commissioner Howard Zucker in the Department of Health.
Christopher Wiles, representing Attorney General Eric Schneiderman.
I'm glad we got that straightened out. Okay.
Tony Melillo, Counsel to the Cemetery Board.
Joe Ambrose, Associate Accountant, Division of Cemeteries.
Rich Koski, Senior Accountant, Division of Cemeteries.
Glenn Breen, Investigator, Division of Cemeteries.
Chad Butkowitz, Assistant Director of the Cemeteries.
Louis Polishuk, Director of the Division of Cemeteries, and I apologize, I really missed the St. Patty's Day memo, so I have nothing to do with it.
No, I don't either.
At least I don't have anything orange, so I'm politically neutral.
That's good for a director of cemetery.
I was going to go with green and orange, had I thought about it.
Yes.
Cover all the bases.
All right. Have folks had an opportunity to take a look at the minutes?
Yes.
Corrections, deletions, anything? Questions are good.
On Villanova, land purchase, motions made second to approve, recommended Supreme Court approval or review consideration. Said approval.
Yeah, that's correct.
Is that correct? Thank you.
All right. I had, anybody else?
No.
Before I go? I just had one sentence that was a little, by the way, these are good minutes. Who took the minutes last time?
Suzanne did the first draft, and I rewrote it.
Yeah, they're very complete. Under Abbott's Corners, I would just, the board, I would terminate the sentence, after the parenthetical. This time was posted fewer than 6 days post date board meeting. Then we delegated to the division discretion to consider and address such comments, if any. Isn't that right? So I would say that the board delegated to the division discretion to consider and address such comments, if any. That would be my change.
To consider and
Address.
address
Such comments,
such comments.
if any.
And just to make sure everyone saw it, we did do two things when we came out of executive session. It's on the very last page of the minutes. We want to make sure everyone is on board that I accurately portrayed this, especially the Fairview
That was
one.
my next one. Yeah. By the way, it's comments. Forget such. I didn't realize it wasn't already addressed. Comments. I'll give it.
How about any comments?
Okay. Great.
Address any comments.
And that's correct.
Okay.
Fairview is
Just
correct.
check.
Right? Right? Yeah. Yeah. That's what we did. All right. Any further discussion on the minutes? Motion?
So moved. Approval of the minutes.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Good stuff. All right. Mr. Melillo, legislation or regulation, what's going on?
Yep. We have had some movement on some bills. The most notable is number 5 in the report. It's passed the Assembly, passed the Senate, moved to the Assembly. It added a definition of cremated remains to the NPCL. I'm going to add a new section, paragraph N, 1510, to allow cemeteries to permit the burial of cremated remains. So, we have had other bills moved to third reading. Here's another bill that passed the Senate. This is number 10 in the report. This would amend the penal law, making changes to penalties of desecration of a veteran cemetery. And again, that just passed one House pending it. That's pretty much it.
Okay. And we're still pending a draft for the submission on the fiscal ones, financial rules.
Yes, yes.
All right.
Getting ready to be filed.
We think we'll have that before next meeting, right?
Yes.
Tony, I apologize. So
You said so before, but it wouldn't matter.
which ones is it?
Number 5 and number 10 in the report.
Number 10 had actually passed one House. Number 5 moved to.
No, they both passed.
Oh, they both passed the House?
They both passed the Senate.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Well,
Region?
Division of
Licensing services.
licensing,
In
licenses
conjunction
them,
with cemeteries.
Division of Cemeteries inspects them when needed.
Mhm. Yep, so we'll see how that develops. I'll be interested in comments on that as that develops. Division.
Okay. So Chet and I worked up what we were gonna talk about in the division report, and he left the notes downstairs, so I'm just gonna have to wing it.
Hold on.
So number one thing, we're going to be meeting with our Division of Local Government Services next week to try to get a road show going. We're also, which is to try to schedule meetings in a couple of counties to give a kind of a cemetery 101 both to cemeterians and local officials, and get the word out there about resources, law, all that kind of stuff. Relatedly, we have we have filled our administrative position here in Albany. We will have a new person taking notes come the April meeting. She's supposed to start a week from Thursday.
Correct.
And we are interviewing for our expansion to our new Binghamton office. Joe and Chet interviewed an accountant today. We have another candidate we're seeing, and then we're going to move on to the investigator position. Hopefully, we'll be expanding our reach. Okay. I have two other things to report. That's just it. One is on February 26th, I believe, Scott Goodrich, the former superintendent of Lakeview Cemetery, was indicted in Tompkins County for allegedly stealing a bunch of money. I don't have the indictment, so I don't know exactly what.
Isn't the guy that took the vehicle?
Yes, we believe that we would allege, if we were the ones doing the alleging, that he stole about 60 grand from the cemetery, plus a backhoe, plus other equipment, and maybe some money from a separate trust fund as well.
Was this already referred to?
The Tompkins County DA is handling it.
Yeah, okay.
I'm just reporting that the indictment has actually been made, and now this is a matter of public
Yes.
record. The other thing that Dan mentioned to me is that he's been getting inquiries about the subject of pre-need sales. It is addressed in our proposed regulation, but the division realizes, probably for proposed regulation, that we don't have any guidance out there for what people are supposed to do right now. So we are going to work on that between now and the next meeting to put something out there as a nature of either a best practices or safe harbor for doing pre-need sales.
Right, and I think
And contributing to the permanent maintenance fund.
and the import of that, obviously, is that what was proposed in the regulations certainly is acceptable to the division as a safe and sound practice for the conduct of pre-need sales and deposit of monies from the maintenance fund. So that's out there. If anybody's interested in adhering to those, that's fine. And best practices will be coming pending the hopeful adoption of the rule once it gets through the process. Good?
That's what I got.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Can I ask, Louis, is it feasible when the cemeteries apply for a hazardous monument or whatever they apply for, to inquire whether they have bylaws in place and whether they're conforming to the Minneapolis property law, with the conflict of interest, those kinds of questions?
There's no reason we couldn't. In fact, we are trying to do a more thorough inspection regime when we go out to cemeteries. I think I reported that on that last month, where we're going to, instead of showing up unannounced, we're going to make appointments so that we can actually chat with them. That's another place where we can pick up on compliance.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn that around to a question, which is the AG doing anything by way of guidance for small not-for-profits and figuring out how they're supposed to amend their bylaws to.
Well, the answer is yeah. That's the reason
I know they're working on that, but.
Because we customarily, when they apply for whatever permission they need, ask them if they filed their reports if they have bylaws in place, if they have the new conflict of interest policy that they're supposed to have, those kinds of questions, we try and routinely ask them. And I was thinking, well, it'd be almost the same here.
I mean, we should do that anytime we have more than routine interaction with the cemetery. If they've applied for something, if they, vandalism or any other kind of application, if we go there for an audit, if we go there for an inspection. Having said that, do you guys have a checklist you're using, something like that? Because that would be really useful for our folks to do.
But I might, let me look for it.
Yeah.
I might be able to find something.
I think it's a great suggestion, and certainly it'll be a good way to make folks aware, because that's one of the problems, is that some cemeteries really don't.
I don't see why going forward we can't do that, although I would not recommend holding up, say, a vandalism fund application based on compliance.
So just providing the information, and asking the questions to the
Yes,
cemetery.
absolutely right.
All right, good.
Thank you, Chris. Speaking of
Okay.
vandalism fund.
Speaking of vandalism, thank you. Speaking of vandalism fund, we have 7 orders, I think. Any issues with any of them?
Do you want to do your report first?
Yeah, let me just do a report.
Oh.
Vandalism
No.
fees. That's right, you're sitting at the table there. Vandalism fees collected, for this fiscal year so far, $152,155. Applications granted, were $580,297, and applications pending are $189,901. $116,713 are actually before the board today. There we have it.
Okay. So now, thank you. So now, getting to these. I would note that Richland could work on the fence thing, just to determine that in fact only one side needed to be fenced and the other 3 were apparently things on a cliff, I don't know.
What kind of
Well, there's a
fences?
pretty good argument that you should have a fence if it's on a
Yeah.
cliff. For other reasons.
Right.
What kind of fence is it?
Well, I'm just
I
gonna
have no
say
idea.
that's an application that was, reviewed and put together by, Mike Seaman. He's available by a cell phone if you'd like to patch him in.
I'm just wondering whether it's an ugly chain link or something that might be more attractive.
I would have to actually look
And our
at that.
general
I'm not
rule is to
sure.
replace it with what's there.
But oftentimes there's nothing there. Now, you wanna give a call to Mike?
I can absolutely do that. Should we try to get him on, conference here? Yep, thank you.
Is it on his personal cell or?
No, works. Just dial.
Actually, you know what, before we call him, why don't we see if you guys have any other questions about any
Yeah,
other
sure.
application that we'll do all together.
Anybody?
There was one town in Oswego County that was levying some kind of tax. Was it this one?
I don't think so.
The
could ask Mike.
the town that was, that was for an abandoned cemetery. The town levied, it was a very small percent, pardon?
It's an active cemetery that they were supporting. Right?
Oh,
There's one day
I'm sorry, I
over.
stand corrected. I believe you're correct.
It wasn't this town, though.
No.
What town is this?
Is it Richland?
No.
Richland.
I believe that was.
I bet you
Yes, it is.
They can do non-ugly chain link now, they couldn't these green slats in. It's not-
No offense to chain
Oh.
link manufacturers.
Mike,
Yes,
you got the cemetery board here, they have a question about a fence.
Mike,
okay,
the fence up with that cemetery in Richland,
yes.
what kind of fence is it?
It's, you're asking what kind is proposed?
Yes.
Yes.
Just a 5-foot tall chain link fence.
Is that what's there now?
There's nothing there now. There's nothing there now, and they want to try to limit access to the cemetery. And they had originally proposed a fence surrounding the cemetery, which is really unnecessary because there's banks on both sides of the cemetery and thick woods in the back, and
Right. Yeah, I don't,
There-
we don't have any problem with that, but
Okay.
the chain link is rather ugly, isn't it?
Well, yes, but it's pretty much the standard. It's the standard for the cemeteries usually.
Mike, this is Paul. Does it do anything to prevent the cemetery being used as a party spot, as cited in one of the memoranda?
That was what their concern was. They want to limit vehicular access to the back of the cemetery. And the fence along the frontage will have 3 gates that can be closed, at night if they want it, or, once the snow comes, or however they want to do it. So yes, it will limit the access.
All right. Well, why don't you tell them to put in a new application for $500,000 for cast iron fence, all right, and we'll take it from there. Sorry, I didn't take it all back, I didn't mean it, okay.
You got something going with it.
That's right. Any other questions, comments? All right, why don't we do an en masse motion? Want a motion?
I did have a question about one of them.
No.
This is Mike one?
I'm saying no.
Yes, it was the
Mike?
one,
Yes.
Okay.
I sent you an email about it. One of them showed that they had received vendors and funds prior, but didn't show that they had reported.
Yeah, Mike and I actually discussed that. I think it was sort of half typo, because looking at our database, we had indicated that they did provide proof of expenditure for the most recent previous application. The one prior to that, 99, we don't have no record of it on our database as having been received, but Mike, as you explained, we talked about this yesterday, when you review current applications, part of your process is to review and make sure that any previous grant funds were properly expended for repair, right?
That's correct. And the 1999 claim was for, I think it's $3,600 was for actual vandalism as opposed to restoration, and that was corrected at that time. Apparently they didn't submit the information, but I do know that the work was done.
Good.
All right. Catch, Tony, I didn't see that.
Okay, so are we done with Mike?
I have one more
Wait,
question.
one more
See that?
question.
I don't know if it's a question for Mike, most probably for you.
There's a public notice that's issued.
Can you hear Paul?
Yes.
Okay.
There's a public notice that's required to be issued with a list of individual names who are affected by this, or might be affected by this. When certain headstones or monuments, whatever, get removed from the list because you deem them not eligible for repair, or repair not being necessary, does anything go back to the people that have been notified to say that those names have been removed? Because the last thing that a person knows is that their name was on the list. And when it gets removed, is it?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but we typically don't do that because typically nobody ever responds to those notices.
Right, because the notice is for.
That's correct. We don't follow up on that.
It's soliciting funds, or.
We take their money anyway.
Right, so they don't respond, I guess I don't know what purpose would be said. Okay, we've solicited funds, but guess, their minds are still.
What we're saying to them essentially is fix it or
We'll fix it.
we'll fix it. Right.
But then
And
we
you're
don't
never
fix
telling
it.
them that we're not
Yeah,
fixing
that's
it.
true,
That's correct.
that's true.
I don't,
Also, what we're doing is notifying them that in some instances, the monument will be removed. So if the monument were in a situation where it couldn't be safely repaired, or the cemetery had a bid that made it, competitive to replace it with a flush marker, that notice lets them know that that's a possibility, and pretty much puts them on notice that the cemetery is going to remove the monument and replace it.
Well, let's just take a look at whether or not, we think we ought to send another note.
the problem with putting another notice is that it's just wasting their resources.
It's an expense to the cemetery. And some of these municipalities do charge it.
Oh, I don't think we have to do it. Do we have a last known address? I wouldn't put it back.
You could have them mailed to the last known address, but I think it's the added
I
complexity
know
of
you think
having
it's a
to
waste
do
of
this.
time, I don't.
No, it's not just that, the added complexity of doing it may deter people from applying to us in the first place for money.
take it under consideration?
No, I hear what you're saying, I just,
Right, okay. No problem.
all right.
All right,
Thanks, Mike.
thank you, Michael. Any further discussion? Motion?
I will move to approve the 7 listed vandalism fund applications in our agenda. Great.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
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 So we have to Oakland,
Sleepy Hollow.
oh, Sleepy Hollow, okay, do we have a contact there? Are they gonna call us or we can call them?
I left them a message to call me.
On what number?
Well, that's a good question. Hold on
Well-
a second. And I didn't write that number down.
No, did you ask them to call you at
You
your
want to
work
do Oakland while
number?
we're waiting for this?
Let's do Oakland.
Okay. Jack,
Can
get
you
it together and we'll
talk
do
to
Oakland.
Alicia, find out what's going on?
I will do that.
I'll call Oakland, they wanted to be on for this.
You called them?
No, I spoke to them, they wanted us to call them.
Good.
Same with Beth Moses is the add-on.
Good.
194. I can't hesitate a second. Hi there, it's the Lewis Polishuk and the State Cemetery Board calling for Mr. Watson.
Please hold.
Thanks.
That's Mr. Lewis.
Mr. Watson.
Hello?
Hi, Mr. Watson.
Yeah.
Hi there, it's Lewis Polishuk and the State Cemetery Board.
Oh, good.
Hi there, how are you, Mr. Watson?
I'm good, thanks.
Good. This is Dan Shapiro, and we're just about to entertain your application. Before we do,
Okay.
is there anything you'd like to address to the board?
No, I don't think so. I think you have the information that, that we can give you, all of the information, and I can't think of anything else that we would have to, to give you now at this point.
Yeah.
So I think we'll leave it up to you now to make your decision.
Yeah, no, I mean, the application is pretty complete. As I recall from that some of the columbariums are relatively close to graves.
Right.
Is that correct? And I know that you posted over the course of the winter, and you didn't receive any response to that.
They not only posted.
That's
Here,
right.
Mr. Watson, I'll answer this one. They not only posted, but when I went up there, I was concerned about how close they were, and they wrote to all of the adjoining lot owners at their last known addresses, some of which obviously came back to sender, some of which didn't. Did not receive any didn't receive any negative comments. However, they have received, and I don't know, maybe Mr. Watson, you could do a better job quantifying this than I was able to. They have since the thing went up, received a fair number of inquiries about actually buying space.
Right. Good. So.
Yeah, well, I don't know. We searched all the files that we have for those lots, and we got names, but they were no longer available. Whether they were deceased or whether, because these are all graves, they're all lots, and so I don't know whether they just moved away or didn't leave any forwarding attached, because what the letters came back not deliverable, and so there was no forwarding address or anything.
Right. Was that the majority of the letters came back, or some of them came back?
Oh, we sent out, I believe we sent out 8 letters, and I think 5 came back, and 3 didn't.
Okay,
Those 3 were not returned.
all right.
If anybody wants, I actually have color pictures of the columbarium inside.
And-
It's not as close as it sounds from talking about it.
And Louis, you've been there.
I was there on
So-
Tuesday.
So why don't you tell us what you think about this?
I mean, they have no cremation space at Oakland Cemetery, as it is right now. It's a prominent location near the entrance to the cemetery, not right in the entrance, but very close in. But for this issue of being close to the graves, which I think they've resolved the best they can, it's not incredibly close. It's, the units themselves are attractive. They have room to expand it into a larger cremation garden, which is shown in the plans attached to the write-up, which I actually think will make it look more attractive. That once they go and they have the additional 2 units and the round unit in the middle. They're not gonna do that. My biggest reservation about this, Mr. Watson, I'll talk to you about this if they approve this, is I think you're charging a little too little on this. I think you can go a little higher with the price, but we can talk about that after. I know you've spoken to Greenwood Union, and I've spoken to them too, but that's not really a board issue. That's something we can talk about once they're ready to go. I mean, overall, I did not bring the financials with me, but well, maybe I did actually. Financially, Oakland Cemetery, which is in a not particularly the best area of Yonkers, has had 2 terrific years financially. It looks great. And I think it's really important for them to have the different product to offer, both for the 64 niches they have and for getting people to keep coming in the door.
Yeah. Well, pardon me, we had a general plan for a cremation garden that Greenwood and Ward established for us a few years back. But we did the addition of the office and the in the area down here instead. So we put that part of it on hold. But it's a map of a cremation garden that was already established. So there's possibilities, if it does go as well as we hope it will, that we have another area that we can look at right away.
Very good. All right, well, I looked over the financials. I didn't have any reservations about them. Does anybody else have any issues or
So
comments?
you had some issues with the pavers, the build out, right?
Well, 2 things. It should be
You
pointed
did that.
out
Yes.
first that,
Okay.
they didn't follow procedure. They went ahead and installed the columbarium before coming to the board. Secondly, part of this does look like a major renovation. They installed a walkway, which required finished excavation and installment of pavers. So there was grading work that was done, and if you look at the definition of a major renovation, it seems to fit the definition.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think they've actually done the walkway part yet. They've cleared the space.
No,
You haven't graded or put in the pavers.
Well, then,
Yeah, there's nothing on the walkway. I mean, only what it will look like when it, when we started it. But there's nothing. No, the only thing on the site is, as Mr. Potter can tell you, is the 2 columbarium units. There's no paving. There's nothing else. It's just those are just.
Well, it's good that the board can treat that as a
We could do that.
as a major renovation application that's properly before.
Right.
yeah, no, I'm glad.
Right, so when the snow is finished melting, which hopefully will be soon, we could write that piece up. I mean, are you suggesting though that we
I think we can do it
exclude
now.
that altogether?
If the board's comfortable with it,
They only have 1 bid, so I think we probably want to go first.
We only have 1 bid. That was
Yeah, well, how much was it for?
$7,000.
I'm more than comfortable, I don't know about you guys, but I'm more than comfortable delegating that to the division. We're not talking about a lot of money.
They have the money.
And then my major concern with the walkway, as Tony pointed out, I think in the memo, is just runoff.
Right,
Kind of
we
situation. That is something, if the division is satisfied that it won't interfere with burial practice there or adversely impact others, then I don't have a problem.
And Carrie or I can talk to your contractor to make sure they've taken into account dealing with proper drainage.
Oh, yeah, sure, absolutely. Yeah.
Tony,
Yeah,
why
we
do you
would
say
do that,
it's
yeah.
not non-proton?
Because they haven't done the major renovation.
Okay, so the columbariums in general, they can start them before they get.
No.
No, that was.
No,
improper.
That was Tony's first point, which I've explained to them already.
Right,
Yeah.
so why isn't that?
That one is.
Oh,
Well, the only one that
right.
isn't is the
Okay.
walkway paving. That part has to be done.
It's sort of quasi non-proton. There are cases where they've come to us after they've started selling niches.
Yeah.
Mr. Watson and his board knew that they couldn't do that. They thought they could do the installation first.
Right. So, whatever, now they know. Now
Yeah,
you know, Mr.
now
Watson.
now you know.
All right, any further discussion? Yeah, go ahead, yeah, that is further discussion, yes.
A motion.
Oh, yes, we need a motion. You wanna try?
I was going to move that we accept the application of Oakland Cemetery to install this columbarium and non-proton and to the major renovation part as well.
Sure, we'll delegate.
Delegated to us.
Yes.
Authority to
For the second,
to approve based
approve it,
upon, you know.
based upon whatever review we
consider-
deem appropriate under regulation.
Very good, that's the motion. Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You're good to go.
All right, so I'll call you next week about what we need to deal with on the walkway.
Okay, yeah, oh, fine. Now is
But
do
you-
you want to contact you when, when the snow is gone and we're ready to go?
I'll know when the snow is gone. I live 15 minutes from you. Let me give you a call next week.
Okay,
All right, thanks.
that's fine, and thank you
Have a
very
good
much.
weekend.
You're welcome, take care.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye.
All right, so have we got Sleepy Hollow? Who may be able to
I
get
do
them?
have a number for them, and,
They're available?
they might be available if we call.
Who's it? Who
All
we
right, we'll give a
calling?
call.
We're calling the cemetery itself or the
Yes,
account?
no, it's the cemetery itself.
Did you copy them?
No. This is the first one. We're gonna let Tony carry it.
And then we'll call Beth Moses after?
Yes. Yes.
Hi there, it's the Division of Cemeteries and the State Cemetery Board. I'm not sure if Len is there or if we're calling for Jim.
Yes, but they're both here, but they're.
Excellent. Do you want us to try them back in about 15 minutes?
Could you do that?
Yeah. Okay, but tell them that we're gonna be calling them in about 15 minutes.
Okay, I will.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, bye-bye.
Let's just do Beth
Beth
Moses.
Moses, yep, fine.
I can figure out what to call it. Oh, here it is. All right, hang on. Their number I know. Council, I'm calling council, he's gonna have to loop in the other folks. Hi there, it's, Louis Polishuk and the State Cemetery Board calling for Mr. Bethel.
Oh, you had the wrong number.
Sorry,
Oh,
that's what I do, that's why I started conferring, because I
that was great,
realized
I really enjoyed it.
I must have misdialed. There, I got it. Whoever that anonymous person was, she's immortalized now.
Mm.
This is the right number.
Hello?
Richard?
Hello, Louis, how are
Hey,
you?
all right, how are you? I've got the State Cemetery Board, and you are being recorded live for YouTube posterity.
I'm very excited by this opportunity.
Yeah, you want to
Let me-
conference the other folks?
Let me
in, please?
conference the other two on, if I may.
While you're doing that, I'll explain to them what else I have here.
Good.
Yeah, you go ahead. So I have, if anyone wants, their actual construction size drawings showing, the main one you probably want to see is the rendering of what the building's going to look like, which is, there's a rendering of the new front, and on this page, and the last page is a rendering of the new back walls. If anyone wants to take a look at what we've got that. And just for the public record, I know I put it in my email to you guys, I'm gonna disclose the fact that this involves Wellwood as well as Beth Moses cemeteries. My grandparents and my father's extended family are all buried at Wellwood Cemetery. My parents own graves at Wellwood Cemetery. I do not yet, I probably should. In the sort of family section, just so I personally don't regard this as a conflict, but I'm letting you know.
Well, since you're not voting here, there's no conflict.
Exactly.
On the board level. You recuse yourself from the lot holders meetings, how's that?
You indicated there was some urgency on this, is that gonna be discussed?
They'll be able to tell it better. I don't know if they have anything quantifiable. The issue is their bidder is a particular construction manager who they want to use, and they have other jobs potentially that they're gonna be taking on, and I don't know the drop dead date, but they really want to sign this soon so they can get this guy.
Louis,
Louis, I just heard the last sentence.
I was just-
More, but
Yeah.
you have on now Richard Bethel, counsel, and a member of the board at Wellwood and Beth Moses. You also have on John Nolan, who's vice president, and William Hennessy, who is the architect who knows the most about this project.
Excellent.
Great, okay. So if you could, this is Dan Shapiro, if you could tell us a little bit about the project, and I understand there's a need for speed, fill us in on that, and
Okay.
we'll get chatting about it.
Good, Dan. I would suggest that Bill, as the architect and the one who's been most intimately involved, is probably the best person to give you the overview. Bill, you want to do that?
Sure. Essentially, the crux of the project is to be able to consolidate the administrative functions of both Wellwood and Beth Moses Cemetery into one building. We had done some studies to take a look at whether it makes sense to renovate and modernize the Wellwood facility administration building. The building really is in terrible disrepair. There's a lot of leaks in the building. The space is somewhat confined in the way the building is put together. It doesn't lend itself very easily to renovating and adding additional functions without great cost. And the other part of that equation is that there's really only 5 people that currently work in that building. So to renovate that building, make it a more viable administrative facility was going to come at a cost somewhere between $800,000 and $1 million. And it seemed to make more sense to try to consolidate the two into the Beth Moses facility, since one, it starts out as a little bit of a larger facility. In general, it's in better condition. It's all on one story and lended itself to a more, I'll say, user-friendly space with some modifications and some additions.
Which was the cost?
I'm sorry.
What's the estimated expense for the renovation of the Beth Moses building?
I would say right now we're somewhere about $1.2 million between deferred maintenance components of the project, as well as 2 additions that are planned for that building. First addition is a record file room storage on the north side of the building, which is about 400 square feet. The other more involved addition is a larger reception area on the west side of the building, which would ultimately become the main entrance to the building for any visitors to the cemetery.
Right. I'm curious, or more than curious, what is the relationship, whether it's contractual or whatever, with respect of Beth Moses with respect to Wellwood? How have you guys consummated your managerial responsibilities?
I think the best way to answer that is the cemeteries, for most purposes, are run as one. I believe, and this is a belief, I have not gone back and looked at the history, this is Richard Bethel speaking, I believe that they have always operated as two cemeteries, but side by side with a common administration, frankly, the common board of directors. Technically, they are 2 separate boards, but they have the same individuals on both boards. The president of one cemetery has, I believe, always been president of the other cemetery. Likewise, the officers are generally common. We split expenses between the two, depending, except where there is an expense that is specific to that cemetery. And there is no gate between the 2 cemeteries. Now, John, you've been there almost 4 years. Has there ever been a gate between the 2 cemeteries or any other division?
No other. So they're side by side.
They are side by side, and you can't tell when you go from one to the next,
I looked
if
online.
you're already inside the cemetery.
Pardon me, this is Tony Melillo, counsel to the cemetery board. When I looked online, I thought there was like a golf course separating the two properties.
No, what's it called? Google Maps has it wrong. It doesn't understand the difference between Pine Lawn, Beth Moses, and Wellwood. The golf course separates Pine Lawn from Beth Moses.
Okay.
And that's Pine Lawn's golf course, by the way.
Yes.
A lovely golf.
Which unfortunately have no participation.
Yeah.
Well, you can have a little line, you can have a little
Economic
driving,
or sporting.
you can have a little driving range in the back there, right?
So
Perhaps
what,
we could establish one. At present, we do not have one.
so what,
Booze, you haven't been using it for that, have you?
Good Lord, I'm allergic to golf.
Fair enough.
what provisions of law keep these cemeteries together?
I don't know that there are any provisions of law.
Or
that I'm aware of
contractual,
that
do you have
pertain to
contractual
that.
documents?
Beg your pardon?
Contractually?
I've never researched this. I've been counsel to both cemeteries for, I guess, 5 years. My firm's been counsel for much longer. My now retired partner, David Auerbach, was counsel to both cemeteries for probably 25 or 30 years before me. But I've never seen a document that formally related one cemetery to the other contractually or otherwise.
So these two cemeteries, they function as one. And correct me if I'm wrong, does the money flow as one? Like how for instance, does the
money is,
yeah.
there are separate financial statements for each. They are maintained separately. There's totally separate accounting for each. Different on some expenses, they are divvied up according to a formula essentially determined by the accountant, Andy Molstock, who I think is familiar to many of you, and who's been our accountant for many years.
Are the same accountant for both cemeteries?
That is correct.
What advantage exists in having them remain separate in name?
I don't know if there's any advantage in having them remain separate in name, other than, we do have there is a difference in some certificates and the like that are in one cemetery rather than the other. All the contracts, deeds, etc., are with one cemetery or the other, so those have always been distinct. If there was a way to formally merge them without difficulty, I don't think that would change much, but certainly that could be done.
Yeah.
But at this point, like many other cemeteries, they are distinct, but they've operated this way for as long as I believe anyone can remember.
Right. The reason I'm asking, at least what motivated me to ask the questions, is that this is reviewing the proposal. I mean, it's a great idea. If you were clearly one cemetery, sure, you're maintaining two buildings. You don't have a need for two buildings. Makes economic sense to move it into one building. The problem that I saw was that I have two distinct cemeteries, notwithstanding they've been cooperating to act as a single unit, and in a sense, we're diminishing the capacity of Wellwood should it ever decide to go a separate way to do business. And I acknowledge that that's not likely to happen, but it's a matter of concern, and maybe it's a matter of concern, and this is a problem because you have inherently conflicted interests having shared boards of directors for the two cemeteries. It's actually, if Wellwood were truly independent, they would say, hey, wait a minute, this could be potentially dangerous for us if we ever decide to split, we need some protection. It's that kind of thinking. And so I'm thinking for Wellwood, where I know you're thinking as one cemetery.
Tony, under what circumstances might that make sense for Wellwood?
Well,
I mean, I'm not disputing what you said. I'm just trying to
It would
understand.
resolve this formula, for one thing, it would resolve the expense issue. You were just speaking to Dan.
That's all right.
But
I'm sorry.
No, it's quite all right. I'd rather you speak to Tony over this anyway.
yeah, I actually have a question for division as to how they audit these cemeteries.
We'd have to have Vince. I mean, there are separate, John, correct me if I'm wrong, you have separate crews and separate maintenance areas.
No, I read the
We have
application.
one maintenance area.
Yeah. I read the application that you shared employees.
Then I'm remembering it wrong.
For some employees are shared. Clearly, the officers like John is shared between the two cemeteries. Up until now, the clerical staffs have been relatively distinct. That's what we're really talking about. What's in the current Wellwood administration building are 5 clericals, 4 and an office manager. Frankly, having 2 office managers is redundant and something we'd like to move away from. And clearly part of what is involved here is what we anticipate be cost savings. We think we have probably more clerical staff than we will need 5 years or 10 years from now, perhaps, than we need today. We don't wish to lay anybody off, but we see some of them retiring, and we see cost savings over the next 5 years. I think one is already ensuing. Is that right, John? I think somebody's retiring.
Somebody just left.
Yeah. You know, so that's part of this. We anticipate saving money, avoiding redundancies. As far as the blue collar, the outside staff, yes, there are people who work at Wellwood and people who work at Beth Moses. There's a little bit of overlap on a couple of trucks, if I remember, John.
Yeah.
But other than that, they are generally kept distinct. Frankly, yes, if I had my druthers, I would integrate them for all purposes. But this is the way they've operated, I think, from inception, as much as I can tell.
Are there still outstanding certificates of indebtedness that would prevent you from doing a merger?
There are certificates of indebtedness. They would certainly have to, in some fashion, be negotiated or something. I don't know. We haven't thought about it because, essentially, I think the general feeling of the board, which is both boards, is to leave well enough alone. The cemeteries have operated fairly well. They're in pretty good financial shape. In fact, I think very good financial shape. And I think everybody has tried to deal with the existing historical structure in a way that made sense. You're absolutely right, whether it was Dan or Tony. Clearly, if the contemplation was they were going to go their separate ways 10 years or 5 years hence, we ought not to be moving functions over to the Beth Moses building. I think the contemplation of everyone at the cemetery is that will never happen. It never has happened. And I think we're trying, I don't know why it was set up as 2 separate corporations. I don't think any of us alive today do know that. I don't know if we went back and looked at the documents, if we could discern it. I suspect we will not be able to.
Well, to add to this is Tony again, to add to Dan's expressed concern about, you know, what if Wellwood separates in the future, they've lost their building. You know, right now, Wellwood is being asked to pay, was it 40% of the cost or 60%?
40%.
Let's see. 60%.
I'm not sure that's...
Yeah, 40% will be Wellwood. So that's, as it stands now, Wellwood is gifting 40% of the cost of this to construct a building on another cemetery's property, without any contract giving Wellwood the right to use that property.
I wouldn't see that as a gift, since Wellwood, to the extent we conceive it as a distinct entity, frankly is going to save in operating costs and in the ongoing payroll costs. Now, if we now see this as you're conjecturing it, as a Beth Moses building, frankly, the major gift here is going to Wellwood because it's saving a huge amount, and all of its administrative expenses are being shifted to Beth Moses. In reality, that's not going to happen because we will continue to divide up those expenses. And so really all that's happening is that 5 individuals are going to be moving a couple of hundred yards.
I think you can break this up 2 ways. Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, but there are several cemeteries in the city that provide all maintenance services to adjoining cemeteries in return for payment, and that doesn't inherently, it's a level of complexity, but it doesn't inherently make it impossible for us to audit them. We just look at their
They don't
allocation.
share other resources, they just provide the maintenance.
Right, but that's well, no, that's not true. In at least 2 of these cases, the cemeteries don't have their own offices at all, and haven't for years. It's not maybe as extensive as this, but we've been able to do that. I don't think that's inherent.
There's nothing wrong with a management contract with one cemetery managing another.
Well,
What is, you want to say?
Right, you were getting me to the second question, which is the in the event of divorce type question, which is, I think the answer to that is, and frankly, I would have said this if Dan had, the first I thought of this was when Dan suggested it to me 2.5 hours ago as I was driving on the thruway. But really,
evading the men in blue.
Oh my God, yeah, I think the entire New York State Police was on the thruway today. But I think that Dan's right that the arrangement for all of the shared services really ought to be reduced to writing. It doesn't have to be a very complicated writing. And it ought to be as long-term as is permissible under law. But that, I think, would pretty much solve both of the concerns here. Frankly, you could express the allocation in there also, and then all we'd have to do is compare what's actually going on to what they've articulated.
There are contracts in these cases.
See, it can get very complicated, because what right are you going to give Wellwood? Will they have just a lease right? Will they have a potential easement? If you really want to do this right and stay separate entities, it can be very complex. The easier thing, I think, is to merge the two entities, since for all intents and purposes, that's what they've been operated as, especially since they have identical boards. I mean, that really, in my mind, whenever there's an interaction, especially of this scope, between two entities, and you have the exact same board on both entities, boy, that's a huge conflict.
Yeah, it's inherent conflict. Right.
Do they have separate bylaws?
They do have separate bylaws.
Do they have separate conflict of interest statements or policies?
Yes, each one has a separate policy.
I think Mr. Miller.
They say the same thing, but they are two separate policies.
I think Mr. Malillo has hit it on the head. That merger would really solve all of these issues that we've been discussing.
See, I don't know. I don't think the issues have been presented to the board during my time there, but I think that the boards would probably be receptive to that, assuming we could work out whatever other issues we would have with that.
But to go back to what's actually before us right now, I don't know whether you guys are satisfied with the other aspects of this, but theoretically, they want to get this thing done in the next year. Let's assume, hypothetically, that all of our everything else we need is in order, and I'm not assuming that that's the case. You probably do have additional questions. Is there a resolution that a motion the board could adopt to approve this, subject to them satisfying, either merging within X amount of time or presenting to the division a satisfactory the division and council a satisfactory agreement as to the sharing of services and resources, etc.
If they satisfy the concerns with respect to the relative rights of the cemeteries or the conjoined right as a single cemetery, I think that would be satisfactory.
The point being, they don't lose this season, but
it's a big
the
deal,
indeterminacy doesn't continue indefinitely.
Yeah, fine. I think this is not a small job. I mean, Richard, I am sympathetic, all right, to where you are in this. This is not a small task that we're contemplating for you. But I frankly, this is Dan again, I don't know how we can approve, flat out, without having some arrangement made, either that assures, the rights of the respective parties to this, and generally, or merge.
Well, hold on. I do have one thought there. This might be a question that John has to answer. Demolition does not occur until phase 3.
That is true.
The Beth Moses office, phase 2, as far as I can tell, which is the renovation of the front, really needs to happen regardless of whether the Wellwood office stands or fails. There is work that needs to be done in front.
Yes, but Wellwood's paying for it.
Well, Wellwood's paying a portion of it.
Yes.
That's number one. Number two, there's probably some extent to which the phase 1 work, you might not need an expansion just for Beth Moses, but doing the bathrooms and getting that back entrance dealt with are things that you probably have to do regardless as well. So is it conceivable that those phases could begin while you, Richard, work on, and the boards work on some legal answer to the rest of this, and the
Hello, Chuck.
Wellwood office doesn't come down until that issue is satisfactorily resolved?
If they were purely Beth Moses projects.
I mean, I think some of this is stuff that Moses has to be brought back. Agreed.
So pure, that means Beth Moses pays for it, whatever it is, it's their bathroom, they pay for it. There's no shared cost because
And
that's
if the
part of
merger or the management agreement is later entered into, then a further shifting of money can occur to reflect that.
There's gonna be one set of funds when you merge, except, you'll have separate PC funds. You might have to do separate funding for the cemetery that has, outstanding certificates, so that they're dealt with only with the original cemetery's property.
Yeah, we would have to be
But,
counting separately for that purpose.
once you have a merger, assuming you guys agree to that, the issue of who's paying for this renovation goes away.
Let me
Now,
ask,
that makes some sense.
let me ask a question of the board, getting to the merits of the application without consideration of the separate cemetery status, all right? Like, did anybody have any problems with what they were proposing, had they been one cemetery?
Well, one question I had was, there was a statement that there was additional space would be freed up at Wellwood for lots. But I also think that you were paving over where the administration building went down. Where are these extra lots?
Paving over? I don't think so. Is that right, Bill?
There's an entrance road that comes in front of the Wellwood building that would be removed and restored back to vacant property. And obviously the footprint of the property that's underneath the building all becomes vacant property.
Part of the appeal of this, they haven't decided for sure that they're gonna do graves, but part of the appeal of this is it does free up grave space, and graves of both Beth Moses and Wellwood are quite valuable.
Right.
Yeah, the largest economic benefit to Wellwood, assuming that the administrative services are provided in the way we've proposed, is the additional inventory of graves. There's a substantial benefit to the cemetery of having those graves.
And what's the current stock represent in terms of years?
What do you have, John? What do you figure?
In Wellwood,
Yeah,
about 12 to 13,000 graves.
And they
You know, so we have graves. We're
Maybe
not in the
1,000 a year?
position of some other cemeteries like Washington that we're about to run out of graves. But nonetheless, we will sell those graves. Those would be at a prime location at a substantial price.
yeah, 12 or 13 years is not a long time. For a cemetery board, we're talking about perpetuity.
Yeah.
No, I don't have any problem if we can get them to merge.
All right, so.
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
Richard, assuming you would speak favorably to the board about a merger, how quickly do you think you can get them together to at least vote in favor of a merger?
I think we could do it electronically very quickly.
Okay.
I think we need to think through the issue because, quite honestly, we had not thought about this
Sure,
issue.
yeah, I completely understand.
You know, and so to that degree, I'm a little blindsided by it. I'm not complaining about it in that respect. I'm just saying it's something we haven't thought through and has never been the subject of discussion to my knowledge. I don't know why in the many years the cemeteries have been side by side, they've never been merged. It may be the certificate issues.
I mean, I think as a matter of business, I suspect you would continue to operate under separate names. You would have Beth Moses and Wellwood, because they do appeal to different clientele. But
Well, historically they do, but I mean, I don't think they do in the sense that there are substantially different clientele that are buying. I think it's largely the same people. You know, unlike some other cemeteries, we have totally different price points. These, I think, are largely the same. The only issue that is different is we have some issues at Wellwood because we're right next to the county dump. But that's just one of those issues we'll live with.
the 100-foot pile of ash.
Yeah, so some graves go a little more cheaply.
That's where my family is, by the way, over by the giant ash pile.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
It looks much better than it used to.
So
That's true.
where we are then is that I think I have a sense of the board, of the division, that we really need to have resolved this issue with respect to either guaranteeing the respective cemeteries' rights contractually or merging, which is the preferred course of action, I think, when you think about it, it's possible. And that we can't really act on this until that's addressed. And that now, whether we act on it today, if the project, without question, is a good project. All right, and we understand that.
May I make one request here?
Sure, of course.
Is it possible for you to act favorably on the request subject to? Because what I don't want to have happen is to lose a month's time. If the contractor is able to start work in 2 weeks, let's suppose, depending on the weather, and assuming we have the man we want and the contract we want on board, is Bill is doing everything he can to accomplish, I would rather not wait another 4 or 5 weeks for your next meeting.
So let me ask it this way: would you, John, go ahead and do phases 1 and 2 with Beth Moses' money solely for Beth Moses? Because if the answer is yes,
then we can do it.
Then I would strongly ask that the board approve it.
I think if that was the order you issued, I believe that it's likely that the board of directors would do so.
Right. Fair
we
enough.
want to get this project moving. We have confidence that we're going to work out the financial issues eventually.
Okay.
I'm not terribly worried, and I don't think my colleagues on the board will be worried, because we're going to work out this merger issue, or we're going to work out a contract if that's the alternative. I think the merger is more likely, unless someone on the board sees a major impediment that I'm not seeing at the moment.
Okay, speak to Mr. Hennessy real briefly.
Sure.
Mr. Hennessy, I'm looking at your architect's project work. It describes phase 1, Beth Moses Cemetery, 3 months, then phase 2, Beth Moses Cemetery, 7 to 8 months. Would you be comfortable with proceeding with just approval for phase 1 at this point, or do you need approval for phase 1 and 2 to proceed?
Well, I think that parts of phase 2 are integrated, and obviously we need phase 1 to happen, but I'm in the midst of planning phase 2, and I don't want to find myself in a situation where by delaying I have to tell contractors to go off the job and remobilize them. I mean, even though we're planning on bidding this, the idea is to basically flow from phase 1 into phase 2. If I lose that continuity, it's going to cost the cemetery more money.
The board's intention in submitting this to the cemetery board was to obtain approval, frankly, for the whole project, all 3 phases. I understand concerns about phase 3 now in light of what we've been talking about, but we would urge you to, at a minimum, approve 1 and 2, and I would urge you to approve 3, subject to our resolving to your satisfaction the merger or contractual issues.
Now, Bill, I know there's been some moving of things between phases. What is your current budget now for phase 1, and what's your current budget now for phase 2? And that what I would like is not just the contractor's price, but your fee too, all in. What's phase 1 going to be? What's phase 2 going to be? Because without hard bids, if the board is inclined to approve it, they're going to approve it with the budget cap. And I want to have a harder number, or at least they have done that in the past, so I'd like to have a harder number as to how much this is really going to cost to do these 2 pieces.
Well, I think right now...
I mean, it doesn't have to be to the dollar, but it's got to be a very good ballpark figure.
Well, I think we're looking at about $1.1 million on the phase 1, phase 2 combined cost, and my fee on top of that is $150,000, which actually includes phase 3, but it's my effort in phase 3 is not that involved. It's probably only about $10,000 in my fee.
Okay, so what's phase 3 going to cost? Let's assume your entire fee would be paid, and let's assume phases 1 and 2 are what, and that your entire fee in phases 1 and 2 are 1.25. What's phase 3 then?
Phase 3 is $200,000.
Okay, because this is a little higher than we had in the documents. This is 200 higher than we had, which isn't inherently problematic, but I want to make sure we've got good numbers before the board.
Correct.
So we're talking about the total project cost of being 1.45?
Yeah, I had thought it was 1.25.
Well, and just because I wasn't prepared for this particular kind of resolution. Phase one is to do what?
Phase one, Bill, you want to explain phase one?
Sure. Phase one is to build a 400 square foot file room addition to the north side of the building. It includes renovation of the public toilet rooms also on the north side of the building. It includes constructing of 2 new employee toilet rooms inside the building. And it also includes on the east wing, re-roofing the building, repointing up some of the stone masonry, and replacing all the gutters and heave lines and sockets. There's a little bit of site work involved as well, and reconstructing a ramp to get to the public toilet. That pretty much establishes phase one. The addition becomes important because in phase two, it's our plan to use that addition as a temporary reception area for public as well as for the funeral directors that come to get grave locations. So phase one has the public toilet rooms and the addition all on the north side of the building. It allows us to kind of contain the public to one side while the remainder of the site is under construction. And it gives us a clear separation between the two sides of the project to keep the public away from the construction side during phase two. Phase two is some interior alterations to accommodate the 2 administrative functions. It also includes a large reception room addition to the front, sort of a whole new entrance, main entrance plaza on the outside. There's some moving of the front entrance road to accommodate some additional parking, and also re-roofing of the west portion of the existing building.
Candidly, neither cemetery's current office offers a particularly good public reception area.
And phase three is the demo?
Phase three would be the demo of the Wellwood facility and basically restoring that land back to vacant land.
If you weren't,
Or
if you were only Beth Moses, all right, I mean, as Beth Moses is now, would you be doing this construction in this manner?
is that a question for me or for?
Or whoever can
I
answer
can
it?
answer it, Bill, and feel free to fill in after I. Clearly, the concept here, or what had precipitated this, is the Wellwood building. You know, we go out there, we have one board meeting a year out at the cemetery, and it had become clear to us, and John has pointed out to us, that that building is close to falling down. I'm overstating it, but not by much. And so there was concern about the employees, feeling the employees should not be forced to work under these circumstances. And frankly, it's not really hospitable to the public. To the extent they come in, there's no place for them to congregate. It's not a very good building. So the first question that we put to Bill was what it would cost to renovate it. And he's the one who came back to us and said, in effect, it's not worth renovating. So the quick answer is this is precipitated by the desire to address the Wellwood problem, and it seemed pretty clear that the alternative of putting up a new building at Wellwood to accommodate 4 or 5 employees probably didn't make economic sense. The notion of putting a substantial amount of money in to renovate the existing building made no sense. And so that's what impelled us where we are. Would we create exactly what we're creating just for Beth Moses? Probably not, because it's probably a little bigger than we would need. But as I said, there are a lot of common functions already residing in the Beth Moses building. The presidents and vice presidents of the cemetery have offices there. All the sales staff works out of that building. So there already are a lot of functions. All the bookkeeping staff work out of the Beth Moses building. Whether it's right or wrong, a good or bad thing, for many, many years, the common services have all been residing at Beth Moses. And so we already have a building that's perhaps bigger than we would have needed if it were solely for Beth Moses. But look, under the circumstances, I think I have confidence, and I believe the board will have confidence, that we're going to address the merger/contract issues in a way that's satisfactory to you. And so in order to avoid a delay that may be as long as a year, my recommendation will be that we proceed using whichever funds. The good news here is that neither cemetery is so strapped for money that if we advance the kinds of dollars we're talking about, it's not going to have a material adverse impact on Beth Moses. Would I prefer that we proceed in the manner we proposed, divvying up the cost? Yes, I think that would be a better way to proceed, but I understand your concerns. And I will respect those concerns in recommending that we do what you're proposing or you're suggesting. Bill, do you want to add anything to what I said?
The only thing I do want to add is that there are deferred maintenance issues in the Beth Moses facility that are a part of this project. The roof really is in dire need to be completely stripped down to the sheathing and replaced. The public toilet room hasn't.
That needs it.
Yeah, it hasn't been touched in probably 40 years.
I would use the word squalid.
What was your word?
Squalid. It's pretty awful.
Okay. The ramp access to those toilet rooms has pretty severe frost damage in concrete. That all needs to be taken apart and reconstructed. So, I mean, there are legitimate works that need to be taken care of.
And Beth Moses could use some additional space. Maybe not this much, but it definitely could use some.
Yeah, the cemetery is inadequate, and presently there is no place for anybody to go off and have a private meeting, whether it be a rabbi or even with a salesperson to go and talk about, what meeting, what a family's particular needs might be.
Which we should have.
Okay, so this information helps me anyway, because my concern is that, well, I've already articulated it. If this is a Beth Moses project, then it should, in order to benefit primarily Beth Moses. It sounds like it does. You can make a good case that a substantial, maybe the overwhelming portion of the project also benefits Beth Moses directly. So that it's not really a fiction to say it should be a Beth Moses project unless you guys merge. Before I say anything else, I want to get a sense of the board, how the board feels about this. You're on our target.
Yep, I'm fine.
Okay, so I'll actually motion this one, and I gotta think about it. I will motion to approve the phases described in the application, phase 1 and phase 2 of the project. Capping for now, with an opportunity to come back to the division if they need more money at $1.25 million. That all the expenses are 1.2.
No, with his, Bill, with your fee, it's 1.25, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so 1.25. That all the expenses associated with the construction and maintenance of the facility be borne by Beth Moses. That continuation of the project is contingent upon Beth Moses and Wellwood effectuating either a contractual agreement addressing their relative contractual rights and liabilities with respect to shared services and shared premises, for as long as legally permissible.
Thank you.
Or, a merger agreement, which is effectuated. The sense of the board right now, this is sort of dicta, the sense of the board is that a merger would be a preferable means to accomplish this, but we'll leave that for the cemetery to work out. And that is the motion.
Well done.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Any other discussion?
Did you also include ongoing operation expenses?
Ongoing operation.
They already allocate the ongoing operations expenses.
I think we should stick to a motion dealing with the renovation of the
You're right to point that out,
Yeah.
but they're already doing that.
Okay, so I've got a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, we got there.
Now, practically speaking, is there a written order that will issue shortly? Is that
I'll
how this
send you an
works?
email confirming this, but nothing's gonna get finalized until Tony reviews the minutes to make sure we actually wrote this down accurately.
As long as I have something in writing, then I'm comfortable proceeding, and I will convey, in fact, I'll wait for Lewis's email, and then I will send it on to the board with my recommendation. Should I expect that today, or?
I'm not gonna be able to do it today, so if Bill wants to
Okay,
reach out
that's
to his
fine,
contractor.
that is fine.
No, but if Bill wants to reach out to his contractor to make sure he doesn't lose him, feel free to reach out to him now. You're gonna get that email on Monday. No,
Good.
you're not gonna get that till Wednesday, because I'm in a 2-day conference on preventing fraud and internal auditing on Monday and Tuesday, and I have no idea when I'll get to a computer.
All right, as soon as you reasonably can, we appreciate everybody's attention to this. We appreciate the attempt to deal with this on an expedited basis.
Yeah.
So I thank you for the time and the understanding.
Yeah, I'm sorry we didn't give you more advance notice of the nature of this discussion. Frankly, it didn't occur to me this morning that this was an issue. So.
Well, it's an interesting issue.
Yeah.
It's just something I'm not sure that any of the rest of us have thought through.
Well,
But we
now's
will
your
do that.
opportunity.
Yeah.
All right, well, thanks for
Yeah,
again.
have a good weekend.
Yeah, you too. Right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye.
Sleepy Hollow.
Oh,
Remember
God.
what we
God,
calling?
more.
It's the last one.
Sleepy Hollow.
The executive agenda is short.
It's getting shorter. by the
Mr.
second.
Fleming, anything you had to say is officially in advance ruled out of order.
Don't even say
I'm
anything.
used to it, actually.
We only have about 45 minutes, right?
I can do it in a half an hour.
I'll start firing people.
Play in Texas.
No, I don't.
We must have sent, no, we must have sent.
Yeah, okay.
Hi, Len Andrews, please.
Yes, hold on, please.
Thanks.
No, I think, you know. Hi there.
Wait, he's not there yet.
Oh, okay. While we're waiting, I'll ask the question, did we send, did we send the referral to the AG on Fairview?
We did not.
We didn't send it yet? No. Open session because it's out of.
Yeah, fine. I might have to get.
Yes, you do.
Oh, God, you have these schedules in order?
Oh, I do.
Hi, Len? Hey there, it's Louis Polishuk and the entire State Cemetery Board and Tony Melillo, counsel to the board.
Hi there.
And I apologize in advance for not calling you earlier this week to give you a heads up that your application was going to be on the board's agenda.
Well, you have the dubious distinction of being the first one to make application. Yeah, so Tony, our counsel is gonna take the burden of this. We had problems with the application, but some of those problems you can lay at our feet because we have not yet come out with guidance on this, and guidance is sorely needed. So let me turn over to Tony why I don't think the board can entertain this at this moment, all right, in this format. So Tony, go ahead.
Right, well, your application, including, a report from the CPA and a resolution of the board. And it refers to endowment funds, but it's actually 3 different funds. What looks like a permanent maintenance fund, a perpetual care fund, and another trust. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Right. So that right there is a significant conflict with the new statute as revised. There are 2 sections that were amended in NPCL section 1507. One deals with permission to use a portion of net appreciation of permanent maintenance fund. The other provision is permits using a portion of perpetual care fund. And those are separate provisions, so there's separate applications. They have to be dealt with separately. And neither of those deals with permission to use a portion of net appreciation of this trust fund. So the application doesn't meet the standards for any of those provisions because you don't have a separate application for the PM fund, you don't have a separate application for the PC fund, and you don't, and you've got a fund that those statutes simply don't apply to. So my recommendation to the board is to object to and disapprove the application for failure to comply with the revised sections of NPCL section 1507, and also failure to comply with the MIFA, what's the MIFA?
Article 5A of the not-for-profit corporation law.
That's been incorporated into 1507. It has the 8 factors, and you have to apply those 8 factors to each fund separately, which the application does not do.
And the only thing I would add, this is Louis, the only thing I would add to that is, perhaps even more problematically than the applications not being separate, your proposed use of the funds, as spelled out in the resolution, is commingled. No matter under the old statute, under the new statute, under any statute, PM funds can be used for whatever PM funds can be used for, but PC funds are restricted for care of the grave for which the specific trust was established. So you can't, no matter where we end up with all the other stuff, you can't treat PC fund appreciation or income as quote-unquote endowment fund money. It's got to be dealt with. I mean, I think you guys know this already, but the statute doesn't change that at all, and the resolution doesn't reflect that distinction. So it's more than just having 2 separate applications. You've got to keep the uses of the money separate for the purposes for which they're intended.
Now that's the bad news and the bitter pill. But there is other news that I will tell you before I turn this over to the board. And that is that we've been working pretty hard at coming up with guidelines which are as simple and concise as possible in order to provide safe harbors for cemeteries when they apply, in order to provide for expedited approvals, and also to consider anomalous situations where access to funds is needed. That might be more than what the safe harbor provides. We've got a draft of that. We're going to be sharing that very shortly with any interested parties for comment and hopefully for constructive criticism, as I'm sure there'll be plenty of. And that's coming momentarily, so that although I don't think, and I haven't turned it over to the board yet, but I don't think this application meets muster, but I'm hopeful that with some help, you'll have an application in a short period of time which will.
Another positive thing I'll say that it was helpful for us in creating that guideline to see an actual application. I know there are about 3 or 4 things that I had not thought of that once we got your application, I thought of. Whether they find their way into the final product or not, it's really helpful to have one of these things in front of us. So thanks for being brave enough to try it.
Yeah, and I'll also say we do have, it took us, and this is just honest here, it took us some time to wrap our arms around what this statute means, all right, how it's supposed to be applied, at least in our opinion. Well, we have wrapped our arms around it now. Well, nobody knows yet because we haven't distributed it. We have an opinion. And we certainly, so there is no reason that a cemetery would be, of course, denied, all right, on application if it meets what our opinion is now. Now, whether that format changes after consultation with interested parties, it's possible, but still we do have an understanding of what the statute means. So the advice that you're getting from Tony, and you can certainly seek more advice, you know, the board can entertain an application, but without having that advice posted, it's going to be awfully difficult for folks to divine what we want. But that's all. I mean, board, you know, we all got to read Tony's memo and we heard this today. My sense is that we have to deny this application at this time.
You could withdraw it.
Yeah.
Well, yes, we certainly will withdraw it and proceed, hopefully with guidelines, so
that we can act quickly. As I indicated this in our resolution, this is an important, very important improvement in the law, in our perspective, enables us to greatly improve the investment philosophy, whereas in the past we had to emphasize income and dividend, forcing us to have an investment policy, which was not ideal. We have already implemented a better investment policy, which does not give us sufficient income this year, income or dividend, and therefore it's vital for this cemetery to be able to use the new statute. And that's the reason why we wanted to get the application in quickly. We expected there would be dialogue with the cemetery board in this process, and we're thankful it's happening quickly. And we'll be looking forward to receiving your guidelines.
Well, we'll be happy to fax
on
those.
rapidly to whatever you want us to do.
Well, I'd like to incorporate your expertise to this then. We're going to be distributing the guidelines. Would it be all right with you if we had, we faxed you over, emailed you over a copy, and you gave us your input?
I would love to do that.
Okay.
Who should they go to? To you, Len? To Jim?
Send it to Jim.
Okay.
They'll be coming very shortly.
Jim, what's your
Very good.
email again?
That's info, INFO, at cemetery.org.
Okay.
Great.
I should have indicated at the beginning that Jim was on the phone with me.
I figured he was.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and hopefully you'll be coming back before the board in pretty short order, and we'll be able to take care of you.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Okay. Take
Thank
care.
you, gentlemen.
Make sure the minutes reflect that they withdrew the application.
Right.
Yep.
Thank
Thank you, Chris. Very good.
Thanks for pointing that out.
Yep. Yep.
So, do we have a copy for
Yeah.
these guys yet?
Did you make copies?
You know what,
Checklist did.
let's,
Thank you, Chuck.
let's, why don't we do the public comment, go off the record, then I can hand this to,
Okay. So there we go. That's the end of this very short on paper agenda that actually took some thought and consideration. It's an interesting session today. So we open up for public comment. Would anybody care to address the board? He didn't mean it, Dave. Is there anything you'd like to say?
I have plenty of things. I was waiting to draw it out as long as possible.
Oh, okay. All right.
Dave Fleming from the New York State Association of Cemeteries. A couple of things. Just first of all, thank you on the comments regarding the safe harbor piece on the PM contributions for pre-need. I think it's extremely important, as I mentioned to several of you, that cemeteries have been contacting us. They just want a sense of what would be appropriate. They're trying to do the right thing. So thank you for outlining that if they're following the proposed regulations, that would be sufficient on pre-need. So that's great. We appreciate that. Also, just as a reminder, particularly because Mr. Wiles mentioned it, the association did reach out to the Charities Bureau and provided them with sample conflicts of interest policy, and we have formally requested that the Attorney General provide a model form on their website for small cemeteries. They do have that information, and would appreciate it if that was followed up on. We have formally requested that and have provided the examples. While it's important to ask small cemeteries if they have the conflicts of interest policy, I can guarantee you in the majority of cases they will not, because they do not have the expertise to do this, and we'll be reaching out to attorneys with mom and pop around the table. I think if we can do something to help them do that, and then the association can advocate that, I think that's a great thing.
Did you see anybody here on that? See anybody on the request?
No, but I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, I'd like to.
I was encouraged to go directly to the Attorney General.
I got you. Okay. That's fine.
So I will be happy to send that over to you.
Do you know who it went to?
It went to the Albany Bureau. Donna Cole Paul in particular.
Okay.
Also, since Mr. Bruns has retired, but he's always in the back of my mind, I would like to point out that the budget proposals for this year include nearly $1 million in funds for vandalism and abandonment, which is nearly a doubling of what was there, which helps alleviate the sweeping of millions of dollars of cemetery funds, people's money, into the general fund, so that's great. And on a positive note, reminding you folks that April 27th and 28th is the Public Affairs Seminar just down the hill, the Albany Hilton, and we look forward to having you join us.
Our board meeting.
The
We've
board meeting
confirmed
will
the
be
board
at-
meeting will be there.
Yep.
Thank you
Look
very
forward
much.
to it too. Thank you. Anybody else today? Alrighty then.
Did you want to have a
Let's-
discussion of the forms and?
Oh, no, which one?
For the property maintenance, the negotiation.
Uh,
It was distributed to board members, so they have it.
Oh, cool. Gee whiz. Yeah. Have folks had a chance to review that? What do you think? I mean, the formatting leaves something to be desired. We're gonna, once we come to a conclusion on it, we'll have it look good. What did you think substantively?
I just had one question about the multiplier. So
Yes.
it's 1.42057, but that's going to be a variable number over time. So should that be part of the form, like somehow will the form be updated?
Yeah, we've indicated that we will update the form every year. Who's adding the next year's inflation adjustment into the multiplier.
See, we're scaring the heck out of NYSAC right now.
Yeah,
Because we talk
right.
formula. But we're trying to keep it easy. And
You're scaring me, too.
We're open to suggestion on this, in the first step, all right?
Well, it's from 2014, so it'll be updated.
Exactly.
And as I indicated in my conversation, this really is an approach. And what we're doing is we're providing a safe harbor, which is almost an of-course kind of application, which if folks follow that, they meet the standard, and they will be able to access net appreciation. For those cemeteries that have circumstances which do not fit within the rubric of the FAST application, they will then put down what their needs are, put down the consideration of factors, and it will be more formally entertained by the board. So it's sort of like, the approach is sort of like what we do for rate applications, in that you have the ECI and fast track for easy stuff, that's an of-course approval. And then for stuff that's a little more complicated, it comes to the board for consideration.
I got another question. When you get into negative numbers, I'm not quite sure what that means arithmetically.
Yeah, that was interesting. You're right,
It
there
means
was one year.
really bad recession, that's what it means.
So what does it do to the application?
So,
Well,
well, what that does is, normally inflation would increase the amount that they would have to add to principal. This actually allows them to withdraw a sum of what they have to add. Because as you can see in the table,
Yes.
the year that if they had a negative inflation rate, adjustment to inflation, it ended up with a negative $516 adjustment. So rather than an inflation adjustment going up, it actually going down. The requirement of how much they have to consider principal. I don't think listen to the Let's hope.
And I know that folks listening who will watch this, they don't know what the general proposal is, so it's difficult to follow. I don't know if now is the time to explain it, because we're going to be discussing it a lot in the near future. But this is one approach. It doesn't have to be an exclusive approach. It is one approach where the division felt comfortable that we could effectuate the intent of the statute while maintaining some comfort level, in the division. But as I said, it is an approach, not necessarily the exclusive approach. So we'll be talking about it.
Another question, in terms of the starting date, what was the rationale for starting in 1999?
Right. It was a market analysis. Maybe I should just give a little background. What the statute does is it allows them to take a portion of that appreciation, but doesn't define that appreciation. So in coming up with a guideline in the form, we had to devise what that term means. To come up with a definition of net appreciation, you have to come up with a definition of principle. So we came up with our proposal is a definition of principle that includes an inflation adjustment factor, so that the value of principle is protected against inflation. I'm trying to remember what the question was.
Why begin at 2,000?
Okay.
Oh, that was
So,
the years.
technically, if you were doing an evaluation of principle, you would look at how much money was actually put into this fund, historic, which for some of these cemeteries would go back to the early 1900s or mid 1900s. That didn't seem feasible, so we knew we had to pick a start date. We picked 1999 because that was a date where the market was at a peak, so there was no artificial gain on the funds because the market was sort of gone up. So it was, and it's also a time period that's not so far back that they shouldn't have the records. So it gives them, let's see, 15 years of appreciation that they can value. And it gives them a starting point that they shouldn't give them cut. So those were the factors that went into it.
You can tolerate it, right? Well, are you going to respond to
may I-
that? Oh, absolutely.
We have really good accountants that work for a lot of cemeteries, and I suggest we work with them. I mean, one of the big firms that does a lot of our cemeteries now, including Greenwood, also represents organizations like the Brooklyn Museum.
Yeah.
Why can we not be treated just like every other not-for-profit? That was the impetus of us asking for this bill to be passed. I mean, I haven't seen any of this. There may be a lot of logic to it, and it may be great, but it sounds like if we're going to be going back 15 years, this is going to get complicated. The norm is 3 years rolling average of the portfolio value. You can take X percentage, less interest and dividends. That sounds pretty simple to me.
This is,
And hopefully
I actually
15 years
understand
is
this, which is
simple, too.
tough, because I don't understand a lot of money stuff. But I have personal finances for sure. But what I would suggest is that you take a look at what we've got. At the division level, we're not wedded to everything here. It's an approach, as I said, all right? So I actually have there are other things we could do as well. But this was the one that gave the division comfort, made some sense. The reason we're rolling it out in a discursive manner, all right, we're asking folks to comment, is that I want to take advantage of all those fancy accountants that we've got and know maybe there's something better and easier out there. It makes a lot of sense. You understand the position of the division of the board always is that, hey, cemeteries shouldn't be hurting themselves. All right, you know how the board feels about the permanent maintenance fund. We are the statute, for good or for ill, is somewhat vague in many respects, and we have to fill in the interstices. And so this is a first attempt at it. I don't think it's going to take us all that long to come to an understanding. Let's submit this. Let's work on it together. Okay.
Seems like a longer period of time to allow you to get a better representation than a shorter period.
Right.
Because the market is bad for 3 years. Could negatively impact the cemeteries, right?
And one of the neat features about this, the first year would be the most difficult. Once you've done the first year calculation, then all you're doing is adding the next year's adjustment to what you've already calculated. So it becomes a very easy effort. The first year's the tricky, if this model goes into it.
And I think once implemented on that basis, what you just described, it's something that can be put into budget analyses and projections going forward. Which is something that was worth our attention.
It's because this is presented this as draft. It really is draft. Let's get it out there. Let's get some feedback. We will. I'm sure we'll have more formal discussions with interested parties and see what we got. Okay. All right. we'll take a,
Send you 2 generous, cut it down. Nobody takes 20%.
we'll ta- oh, see that, there you go.
I'm on your
That's the
side
man in
on
my
that.
corner there. All right. We'll take- we discussed that too, you know that? I've got him on record, I've got it. We'll take a 5-minute break, and after that, I will motion now to go to, executive session for investigative and litigative matters.
Right.
Second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, 5 minutes. adjourn?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.